people were concerned that the New York State Police were starting to mobilize the troopers and were getting set to potentially attack the prison. And at 5 o'clock, the president comes out and announces, okay, it's 5 o'clock. The office is closed. Everybody's leaving now. Okay, everybody pack up. It's time to go. And so they refuse to leave. And so he calls the police. Right, so the police come and they come in, and here's the Catholic priests and the nuns and stuff like that. So he's going, sorry, Fada, that, and they pick him up and they put him in the elevator. They bring him downstairs and set him down on the sidewalk and walk away and leave him. And the next morning they come back, 9 o'clock, bang, they come right back to the office. They come in and sit down in the room. So the guy gets on the telephone and he says he comes back out. He comes out and says. Get them N-words. I've gotten in trouble for this in the past, so I'll just say, get them N-words out of my office. That's what he says right in front of them, right?
Out loud.
Yes, out loud in front of them, and they're just mortified by this, right?
Well, at least he tells you who he is.
He goes back in and gets on the telephone and calls the Cahill firm, calls Larry McKay, our senior partner, and asks to have the Cahill firm come over and get an injunction against them coming back to their office, right? And so the word goes out like wildfire around the office that they've been asked to do this thing, right? So I'm just ignoring it, kind of smiling. And I get a call in the middle of the morning, and one of the senior associates calls me in. And he says, Dan, he said, I suppose you heard that, A&P, the president's called us and asked us to get this injunction against the Operation Breadbasket people. I said, yeah, I saw that. I said, who are you guys going to get to do something like that? And he said, well, they've been meeting all morning in the executive committee, and they sort of thought it'd be a good idea to have you do that. He said, yes. He says, people like that. That's what he said.
Oh my
because I'd done the Panther thing, right? He says, you know people like that. And I said, look, I said, who are you really going to get to do that? I thought he was bullshitting me, right? I said, who are you really going to get to do that? He said, no, it's serious. They want you to do this. I said, look, the most that you could possibly have asked of me is not to question your own personal moral integrity for having anything to do with a case like that. Okay, but I wouldn't touch pencil to paper to do that. So I get up and leave, right? So that was another one goes in. And all of a sudden the executive committee throws this big shit fit, over the fact that I won't do their cases. And
that you have principles.
Yeah, right. So I was there, I was there. I saw those kind of overtures that they make to you, to come on in, be part of this whole thing, figure out who the senior partners' daughters are, and go to the pavilions with them, and come on in, so you can actually get invited in to that group. It's not all just interbreeding. It's not all just family stuff, but you can join their family, and so that I saw that thing go down, and I just didn't pay any attention to it. And so when they notified me that they thought I'd be happier elsewhere, I said, no, I'm fine. This is fine. I get to spend half of my time doing public interest stuff. It was the deal I cut as a condition to come there because because it turns out Pappas wouldn't allow them to represent him in the right of journalists to protect their confidential news sources because they didn't even believe that the right existed, right? And so he wanted those kids from Harvard who'd done it for him, so that's how I got recruited. So I had cut this deal, so I got to spend half of my time doing public interest cases. That's how I was on the Panther case, right? Because I volunteered to be one of the attorneys for the Panthers, and I got to be the lawyer for all the inmates in the Manhattan House of Correction, the Tombs. We got an inmates council set up, and we got a newspaper for the we did things like that. That's why I was at Attica prison the night everybody got killed there that night.
Attica,
Attica.
Yeah,
I was there that night when everybody got killed.
You were there.
Yeah, I was.
Wait,
there.
all right, let's take that tangent real quick.
Yeah, I was there.
What were you doing? So what were you doing there?
I got called by Bill Kunstler. Bill called me.
That's another name I know.
William Kunstler called me that he was one of the Lawyers Guild people that was lawyering for the inmates they had a riot at the Attica prison up in northern New York.
Was he the Chicago 7 attorney?
Yes, he was. Yep. And so he called me, and they wanted a non-Lawyers Guild lawyer to come in to argue the case in front of Judge Curtin in Buffalo. That they'd had this riot going on for a number of days and that people were concerned that the New York State Police were starting to mobilize the troopers and were getting set to potentially attack the prison, to take the prison back. So that they asked me to come in to ask Judge Curtin to get an injunction to stop them from attacking the prison. So I went in to argue in front of Judge Curtin, and Judge Curtin said he was going to take the argument under advisement for the evening. And then at about 6 o'clock or so, we got word that the police were all moving. The state police were moving on the prison. So we called Judge Curtin and went out to his house later that evening. He was actually in his bathrobe, and we were in the kitchen, arguing the case to try to get him to issue the injunction. And then we got the bulletin, came in over the radio. We were listening to the radio in the kitchen, that the attack started against the prison. So we went out, and he changed the order to order doctors in with 6 lawyers of us to come in. So we had this big caravan of about 4 big Volkswagen buses with doctors in them and a lawyer in each one of them. And we went out onto the New York State Thruway and ended up had a federal court order. So, but they shut down the highway. They shut down the Thruway out around Attica prison. And so we ended up getting allowed through the turnstiles there. So we end up going along the highway, and all of a sudden this big caravan of about 10 New York State police cars come rolling up with sirens and lights going and kind of forced us off the highway. It was kind of this rain falling on everything. And they jumped out, with these big phosphorescent rain jackets on and shotguns and started measuring the depths of the tire treads on our vehicles to see if they could figure out how to get us off the highway.
Oh my God.
So I ended up, we'd have put into the court order a provision ordering anybody who tried to interfere with us on the highways, they would be in violation of a federal court order in criminal contempt of court. So I held it down in front of them and showed them when they had the flashlights on our tires, and I said, "This means you guys, you guys got to step back now and let us through here." And so I turned and I said, "Where's your barracks commander?" It turns out I just happened to know what a barracks commander was for the New York State Police because my dad was a prison guard.
Oh, really?
Great Meadows Prison. So I knew the troopers and stuff. So I said, "Where's your barracks commander?" And the minute they heard that I knew what that was, they all just froze. And we turned and looked, and here's one of the New York State troopers getting set to pull the door open on one of the Volkswagen buses. And so we rushed over there and stopped him from going in. We then got back in the buses and we went on into the prison, and we pulled into the prison, and the helicopter, there's still tear gas everywhere. They'd already struck and hit the grounds and shot all 41 of the hostages and killed them. And the tear gas was all over everything. The helicopter was laying on its side where it dropped the tear gas in, and it stopped on the side of a hill and fell over. And, there was chaos reigning everywhere. And I ended up going up onto the front steps of Attica Prison with the federal court order in hand and put it through the door, knocked the door. And it was directed to Mancuso, who was the warden. And these 2 great big state troopers, in these phosphorescent rain jackets there with these shotguns standing there. And I put the thing through the door, and about 3 or 4 minutes later, they hand it back out and they said, court order or no court order, no one's coming in here. We have a state of emergency here. And one of the cops turned around me and he says, "You heard him, asshole," and ends up just hammering me with the butt of his shotgun like that. Hits me right across.
Oh, he hit you?
Yeah, hit me right across the back of the shoulders and knocked me down. So I jumped back up and I said, "You guys are in defiance of a federal court order." And I turned to Herman Schwartz. Herman Schwartz was the head of ACLU, Western New York ACLU, went on to become the chief counsel for the Senate Judiciary Committee. But anyway, I turned to Herman Schwartz. I said, "Okay, Herman, you go back to Judge Curtin right now and get a federal court order nationalizing the state police, and we're going to take back this prison." And Herman Schwartz said, "Holy shit," he said. And I said, it wasn't my best line. I said, "Herman, you're in the big time now." So I just said that. It wasn't my good line. So I sit down on the steps in the rain waiting for them to come back. Judge Curtin ordered them into a hearing at 8 a.m. the next morning, right? But this is like midnight now. And so we sat there, we staked out the entire prison with the lawyers and doctors that we had and put them in front of every one of the gates of the prisons so they couldn't get the bodies out. And they had already issued the New York State coroner had issued an official coroner's report that all 41 of the hostages had been killed by having their throats cut by the inmates.
Throats cut.
Yeah, total lie. They'd all been killed with double buckshot, all of them. But we sealed down the prison so they couldn't get the bodies out because we were all guarding each of the doors. And so when the sun rose, they had to have a special press conference, and the New York State coroner came and officially reversed his position and acknowledged that they'd all been killed by double buckshot. So they held a meeting at 8 o'clock and ordered an autopsy of all the bodies. So that was...
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.